Welcome, and thank you for joining this exciting discussion about transitioning from legacy to modern technology. My name is James at Revenue Analytics, and I'm joined today by three experts in the space. First is Adam Swart. Adam is the global head of brand communications at OTA Insight, where he has been since 2020. He has over 15 years of experience in the world of technology and startups. My good friend here, Michael McCartan. Michael is the Chief Growth Officer at Atomize. He has over 20 years of experience in hospitality and tech, predominantly in the fields of channel management, business intelligence, and revenue management. And then we have Simone Puorto. Simone is an advisor with over 20 years of experience, a keynote speaker, and four-time published author. He has founded a consulting firm, Travel Singularity, and is also the organizer of the first travel and hospitality event in the Metaverse. I really want to understand that one. That sounds pretty cool. Before we get started, a little bit about how today's flow is going to be. We have a set of prepared questions that our panelists know about, but we want to make sure that this is interactive. There'll be an actual place where you can pop in some chat questions to us, and we'll receive those, and then we'll go ahead and answer those as much as we possibly can. All right, so let's get started. The first question. The inspiration for this discussion came about a white paper jointly written by Atomize, OTA Insight, and Revenue Analytics that is about pushing the industry forward towards actually using modern technology. So to start, we've asked each one of our panelists to come together about this topic and see how and why we actually did this white paper. So let's start with Adam. You mind kicking us off?
Yeah, thanks, James. And thanks to Revenue Analytics for really spearheading this LinkedIn Live session. Super exciting to be part of this panel. Yeah, really this session and the white paper really came about as we have a really tight-knit partnership with you guys at Revenue Analytics and Atomize. I think this alignment really becomes we're all collectively focused on helping our customers achieve their goals. And so over the course of one of our chats, we were talking about all the seismic shifts that have occurred during the pandemic. And it's really, really wild to see how much has changed in just a short amount of time. As you noted in my bio, I joined OTA Insight. You know, it's an outsider to the world of hospitality tech. I joined in March 2020. Great time to join the world of hospitality tech. So I have seen and experienced the shocks to the system, so to speak, really, really firsthand, and how hoteliers have had to really quickly adopt, you know, not only to market conditions and all these crazy changes and ups and downs and peaks and valleys. So we really wanted to enable the folks that have been sitting on the sidelines and help make this transition from, you know, the old way of doing things, what we're calling the legacy technology, and really making that shift to more modern technology. And this doesn't have to be a scary thing. You know, I know that any kind of changes can be challenging and scary. You've been doing things for a number of years, but we really wanted, you know, through this ebook and through this chat today, just really help folks that have been doing things the old way and make that shift to in embracing modern technology and all the benefits that entails. You know, especially where we're still seeing a lot of uncertainty in the market as we, you know, come out of this funky time with the pandemic. Now we continue to see these staff shortages and folks doing a lot more with a lot less staff, and now we have this looming recession. So there's still uncertainty paired with a lot of optimism with that pent up demand that we've seen in the market as we go into 2023. And so, yeah, for me, this is really about embracing change, leaning into that, and helping folks adapt to all these changes and leveraging technology.
Yeah, one thing I would say, the way that we did the white paper is that we did a much old versus new, and we really positioned that well within the paper, because a lot of us that are on more the sales side of things, not only are we talking to revenue managers or distribution directors, we're also talking to IT. And IT has a lot to do with what is going to be modern technology moving forward, because they're in the forefront. They want to understand APIs. They want that kind of connection, because if we can minimize their effort in getting onboarded, then we can pretty much, you know, move forward with all the different technology solutions that are out there in the marketplace. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on how, you know, we came together with this white paper?
Yeah, hi James. Thanks for that question, and yeah, welcome to everyone. Yeah, it might seem strange that, you know, two competitors, Revenue Analytics and Atomize, collaborated with OTA Insights on this, but we've been talking to each other for many months now, and we share similar beliefs in sort of understanding of what a good technology vendor is and what that represents to the hotel customers. And we both have a frustration that everyone paints themselves to be modern, positions themselves to be easy to integrate with, easy to use, easy to, with lots of automation. But the reality is very differently. I mean, and I know we'll talk about this later, James, but just having to integrate with some of these partners can be extremely difficult, and then onboarding customers can be even more difficult, and then ensuring that those integrations remain in place and the data quality is guaranteed and assured at all times is a huge challenge. And to help the customers the hotel customers really understand what it means to be modern and remove those barriers is our duty. I think as a modern tech provider, or all three of us as modern tech providers, we felt it was our duty to really shine a light on this issue and help hoteliers understand what modern really looks like and what it really is, and see through some of the window dressing that may be in place around some of the the potential vendors in this space. So hopefully we've done that. I think the way that it's organized and written is very simplistic in nature, very easy to digest and understand, and but it's dealing with a very real problem and challenge for our industry.
Yeah, thank you. And Simone, thank you for your contribution to the white paper. And you're coming from it from a different angle, not as much as a technology provider, but more as a consultant and your expertise in there. Why do you think it's important for the industry to focus now on modern technology?
Well, I think the main problem, and I've been working in the hospitality since the late 90s now, and the first part of my career was spent on the other side of the hotel, right, before consulting. But I think we do have a problem with technology because every time we think about hospitality, and to a certain extent that is also true, we think about something that is very high touch, but not high tech, right? And I can see that, especially when it comes to like luxury properties, they are so worried about losing the quote unquote human touch, right? And it looks like at some point they become technophobic. So every piece of new technology you add to them is going against that very high touch kind of service. Now, what I'm trying to say, and it's been something that has been bugging me for the last 10 years, is that actually the more technology you implement in a hotel or whatever accommodation provider, the more you can focus on what really matters in terms of human interaction, right? Mm-hmm. And I think like that after these 2 years of COVID, we had to come to terms that without some better tech that is not working in silos, we can actually do more with less staff. For example, labor shortage, especially here in Europe, is like a disaster right now. And so I think now it's a little bit more accepted. But the overall narrative is if you add technology, you're losing the human touch. And to me, that is not exactly always the case. So I think, like, to sum it up, I think that it's not only a tech problem, right? But it's also like a mentality problem, an entrepreneur problem. So I think it really comes down to that.
Let me add a little bit to that conversation about the luxury segment, the technology. The consumers that are actually staying at the properties want technology. I mean, there was a study that actually they're used to it. They have it in their everyday lives. So why would hospitality not embrace more technology if their own customers are using the technology and want to actually engage in that way? Not to say that every single item in a hotel needs to be, that high level of technology, but simple things that actually can be in place.
Yeah, but I don't even think, like, to me, that's not even that. The main point is, good technology in hospitality should be invisible, in my opinion. Okay, so like it should run on the background. You should not even see that. I always say, technology in hospitality is like ninjas. The more they work in the shadows, the better it is. And but look, I always ask my clients the same question. You guys travel. When is the last time you had an amazing check-in experience? And they don't remember that. And the problem is that you got all these beautiful human people doing robot work. So they have this heads down kind of approach, and they do not interact with the guests because they need to work with silos technology. So in one way, we are implementing so many technologies, but we're doing it in silos so that the job is getting harder and harder. It's getting farther and farther from what it really means to be somebody working in the hospitality. So it's to me, it's really a mindset.
Thank you. We'll talk a little bit about automation. And a friend of mine said automation is in place for the tasks that humans can't do, right? So we'll talk about that. And let's talk a little bit about the invisible part of technology, integrations. I'm extremely passionate about integrations. And the reason why is because we need, for our solutions to work, they all have to connect to each other. They all have to talk to each other. We have old forms of integrations versus new being APIs that are there. And there was a study that was done that said 58% of chains ranked integrations with their existing tech stack as the most important critical factor in choosing a new property management system. That's a huge number, right? And again, you could say the property management system is the hub of the actual property. So for myself, looking at integrations, there's two parts of it. You have the certification of the integration. You connect to the property management system or to the central reservation system or channel manager. We're sitting in the middle as the RMS. We connect also with OTA Insight to get that data. But there's the flip side of where the integration needs to be at, which is the implementation process, right? That is where I feel there is a disservice to your clients that are new to your actual environment. The first thing they're going to ask you in a sale is, how much does it cost? The second question they're going to ask you is, when am I going to be ready to use my system? And as we see, sometimes that can be anywhere from, 2 to 3 months. That's the problem right there, right? So looking at this, let's go back to you, Simone. We're really going to hit you hard on some of this stuff because you're not the vendor. You're hearing all the information. Can you share from your perspective? And I know you're passionate about this too. Integrations between systems are so critical and important to success. What does it mean to build an API first technology?
So I like to. There is an interesting book that I quoted over and over again, and it's The Wisdom of the Crowd by James Ruryevsky. If you haven't read that, it's really suggested read. And there is one part that to me is very interesting, and it says, "Look, the days of Leonardo da Vinci are over," and this means that you cannot really have a software today that can do it all. Again, look back of when I started. A PMS was basically just a glorified version of an Excel file. That was it, right? Mm-hmm. So the PMS should only do that. Fine. Today, a normal average hotel cannot really operate without at least half a dozen software. And I'm talking like a small boutique property. And if you start to go into resort or bigger properties, the number goes up, right? And there's no chance that the same software can do everything in the perfect way, you know. And there will always be something. This only one kind of approach is not working, right? To me, I always make the example. It's like if you buy an iPhone and you want to download the Instagram app, and Zuckerberg rings at your door with a server. They said, "Look, I'm going to install the server in your apartment so you can use Instagram." It doesn't make any sense. And to me, this is like technology kidnapping, okay? And I wrote an article a couple of years ago for I remember maybe FocusWire, and I said, look, integration is the biggest taboo in the travel space. You cannot really talk about that, right? And man, I received some crazy messages after I published that, you know. And so it's to me, it's not even a question of tech because we're pretty much in a transition phase. You know, we're getting out of silos, like monster in the basement kind of PMS. But it's more like a commercial/political thing, because look, let's be honest here. I'm not name dropping, but a lot of these companies, they make money out of integrations, right? So they do not have any interest in getting out of these walled garden platforms. So the problem to me is the fact that when we talk about that, for us it's normal. Like we say, okay, this is spaghetti code. It's not going to work. But a hotelier, and this is something I think we get it wrong all the time. A hotelier is not stupid, but they should be, in my opinion, more concerned about the quality of the beds or the quality of the pillow than the quality of the technology. They cannot know anything about technology, right? And so it's up to us to explain, look, this is probably the best way to go, is to go with an API first, cloud native system, instead of like this monster that you're installing. And I think a lot of vendors did a great job in convincing hoteliers that integration is something that is super complicated. Well, it's not. It's the problem is that you're either making it complicated because you want to make revenue out of it, or it's complicated because your system sucks, and it's a spaghetti code system that has been going on for 25 years. So integrating anything means that something else is going to break. Again, I don't want hoteliers to understand all the technicalities behind that, but I want hoteliers to understand that there is another way of doing things that is more agnostic, tech speaking, and it can be done. And it doesn't mean that every time you need to integrate just small software, you need to spend 10K and wait for a year. I'm sorry, I've been very brutally honest with that, but yeah. Anyway.
No. It's why we're here to talk about this, and we have not so much a question, but a comment that came in from Patrick Van de What. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name there. Technology is always considered a cost instead of a revenue enabler. Hoteliers need to start realizing that. There's actually, there's a lot of truth to that. What are you guys' thoughts on that, Michael and Adam?
Do you want to go, Adam?
Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
I mean, it is true. I mean, it's an investment, and there should be a demonstrable return on investment. Otherwise, you have to question why you're implementing that technology. But I think, to Simone's point, the interconnectivity between systems shouldn't be a revenue generator. That we should be able to sell our software on its merits as part of an interconnected ecosystem. And if we can't deliver our part of that ecosystem, then the hotelier should be in a position to swap us out very easily and cost effectively and deploy something new equally easily and cost effectively. And that's really where we want to get to. If we can have this interconnected ecosystem of technology supporting hotel operations, commercial and on property, we will be able to make the people, the humans at the hotel, far more efficient, far more effective, and create much more interesting and exciting jobs for them. But the reality is that because we don't have that, because the technology, largely because of the complexity in getting it integrated and deployed, is reducing people to doing, as Simone said, some robotic work. Work that is not adding value to the organization, and that's really where we've got to get to. So yeah, it shouldn't be a cost, and it should provide value. And it should enhance the roles, the jobs that we do within hotel operations. And if it's not, we need to question why not.
Well, AHLA released something yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. They have its HTNG PMS. And from I saw with the highlights of that, it is now a simplified PMS integration. Again, I haven't read it. It just came out probably last night. That hopefully might be a way that we can get things up and running a little bit faster. And again, we have the implementation side of it. Someone's just made a comment about that, about the 3 months for implementation is an issue. It's something that we actually have to look at. So Adam, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comment from Patrick, and I would say, that's that old way of thinking, that legacy way of thinking of technology as a cost center, or is antiquated, especially now. I would say, what is the cost of not embracing technology, especially as historical data is largely obsolete. Now we have things like predictive analytics and technology where we can see what's really happening 90 days out in the market, and folks are able to leverage the data points that we're seeing to make better, more informed decisions that they can action more quickly. So I actually think there's a much higher cost in terms of not embracing the technology that's available to folks. And to Michael's point, Simone's point, hoteliers are wearing so many hats now that it's really impossible to keep up. If you're in the data, you're in the analytics, you're doing these manual repetitive tasks, which by the way are prone to human error. Also a significant material cost, right? What is the cost of making errors over and over again and then not serving your guests? What's the cost of a bad review because you're not able to service guests properly and provide a great experience because you're dealing with these manual repetitive tasks? So I would push back and say that, for those legacy folks, what is the cost of not embracing technology? What's the ROI on not making that investment?
Yeah, so let's shift a little bit, but kind of keeping on the theme that you're talking about, Adam, which is then automation, those repetitive tasks, right? So the ultimate goal of automation is to empower people to take back the time and repurpose it to higher value work. Things like strategy, being creative, and collaborating with cross-functional teams to break down silos. We call that the commercial strategy, right? And I would like to also say, what can we do, or what do we have that legacy technology hinders within automation? So Adam, let's talk a little bit more about this. A lot of tools that are in place right now. You have at OTA Insight, you have forward-looking data, current data, you have now a new platform for BI. What is it to the revenue manager to allow them to be strategic and take out what is that day-to-day work that they were doing, but allows the tools that you have in place to allow them to kind of move forward into that commercial strategy?
Yeah, great question, James. We really think about this embracing of technology, visually, like the old way, this manual way of doing things. Think of it like as a black and white television with that old school clicker. And now this new way where we're seeing the light, you're moving over to 4K HD TV where, things are very clear. The data is clear. What you're seeing in the market is very transparent. And simply put, like I said, those completing these old repetitive tasks, it's super hard. It's error prone. And, in a market where we're trying to staff back up, I think it's also leading to folks burning out. So I really have a lot of empathy for those folks that are still working in those legacy systems. They're trying to update room types and rate plans as demand shifts. So it's very challenging to do things the old way. And what we're all encouraging in this panel is really to embrace this new way of embracing modern software and technology. I think over the last 2 years, the customers that I've spoken to that were legacy folks and joined OTA Insight, it's just amazing to see the strides that they make in terms of growing their revenue. The staff is happier, and they're reducing. I think we touched on this a bit, but that fragmentation across the commercial teams is really, it goes away. When everybody's aligned and you're using the same platform, you're not over here doing one thing and over here doing another thing. There's really an alignment across the org through automation, where companies can really focus on what they do best, and that's really super powerful. So I think, we here at OTA really believe that the path forward is to automate all data streams, consolidate it into one commercial platform, and align across the org, especially with revenue, sales, and marketing departments.
Yeah, one thing with us with revenue analytics and our product of Into Pricing is that we believe that the automation should be customizable based on what the comfort level is of that individual, based on that particular accommodation type, locale, what their needs are, versus having something that is completely automated and then you have to go back and reverse or what was actually deployed, or something that is fully manual. So we have kind of like that nice sweet spot in the middle there to allow automation to work. And then as you get accustomed and used to it, you increase it. And the more that you increase, then actually you're taking your pricing strategy and that becomes a smaller part of your day. And you're moving then into that full commercial strategy and working with others within the organization. Michael, what are your thoughts about kind of where we're going in this commercial strategy and then also looking at it from the point of where automation can help?
Yeah, so I think automation can be sort of put into two broad buckets. One is just automating repetitive tasks. So whereas just robotically doing something that a human is having to do, and that could be processing credit cards at check-in and things like that. That is a soul-destroying activity that is time-consuming, error-prone, etc. And humans shouldn't be doing that. That type of work is really good for sort of dumb robots to do. They're just following a process you're just mimicking keystrokes, etc. And there are lots of processes in hotel operations that can be done by process automation, a robotic process automation. But from a revenue standpoint, a revenue management standpoint, and other areas of the organization as well, there are areas to do intelligent automation. And just by way of a simple example, if you took a hotel, a 100-room hotel with 5 bedrooms and 5 room types, and you said to them, how much time would you have to spend to analyze the optimal price point of those 5 room types just in a single 24-hour period to ensure that you're optimally priced for the next 365 days? And the calculation off the top of my head is like 100-something billion. It's a huge number. And no human, no matter how well they understand the market, no matter how well they understand their market, their customers, they can't process that amount of data in a 24-hour period, and neither should they be able to. But intelligent, AI and machine learning capabilities can do that and can really understand what's happening in the market every second of every day and ensure that room is optimally priced. So that tactical pricing is really ripe for automation, and that frees up that revenue team to be more collaborative, to be more strategic, to really understand where their soft periods are and how they're going to create more demand to fill their hotels and things like that. So it's just one example of how intelligent automation can make teams more productive, more leaner, actually do more with less, and actually produce better results and break down those silos. And the other thing which I think is important is that the tools that you use to facilitate this automation, they need to use AI and machine learning, but they also need to be simple in terms of their user interface and how you engage with them. So you don't need specialist users to get the most out of them. Everyone in that commercial team should be able to log into the system and derive the information that they want to come to the decision that they for their strategy and sort of guide their strategy. So a combination of intelligence through AI and machine learning and a simplified user interface really frees up those teams to be much more strategic in nature.
Yeah, I was smiling because when you said the number of room types and then take that out 365, I was like, yeah, but then add rate codes to that. And then you're really kind of talking about a big number, right? All right.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the cloud, it'll be nice to see from our people that are joining us there on LinkedIn Live, put in the comments kind of where you're from. I know we have a lot of people that are popping up from Europe. Let's see who's here from the Americas, and we could just kind of get a sense of who's on the call. All right, so now let's talk about the cloud, that big buzzword that's come around from time to time. Let's see here. Rather than asking how does the shift to the cloud impact the way hoteliers work, I'll ask how should the shift be to the cloud to impact technology for the way hoteliers use and therefore how they would work. So let's go with Simone. Let's talk about that.
Oh, that's a good one. Look, first of all, I'm not sure. Is it like, I don't know what you think about, guys, but do you think like the cloud is still a buzzword? Like, to me, it's always surprising that we're still talking about that, because I don't understand from a tech point of view. I don't understand why we should even prefer a legacy system over a cloud system. And but again, I think it all goes back to the fact that a lot of people that are not tech savvy they probably don't understand all the different implications of that. So let me tell you a story that I think it's pretty funny. It happened to one of my clients, and it was 2020 full lockdown, right? So you remember these days. The only way you could get out of your apartment was to get a walk with your dog. And I remember I had this client that legacy system, of course, like one of the worst ones you can imagine. And he was totally blind. He didn't know what was happening because he could not access the PMS from his apartment, and he could not go to the hotel. So one night he just said, whatever, I'm taking my dog out. I'm going into the hotel. I'm grabbing the server, bringing the server back to my apartment, and now I'm checking what is happening. Okay. And I always say this story because to me, that is really the situation that we are putting ourselves in. And it doesn't make any sense. But again, when you've been doing the same thing over and over again for so many years, it can be scary to switch. And I always say, half joking, that after a divorce, if you're in the hospitality space, changing a PMS is the most stressful thing you can go through. Okay, and this is usually because you got loss of data. And then you need to retrain people and so forth. And I think you have this in psychology, this is called an availability bias, right? So you kind of remember that one time when you changed the PMS, everything went wrong. And now you don't want to go through that experience again. But as you know, Michael, me and Michael, we go a long way, so we're pretty aligned on the way we think. But it's totally right. So look, in a perfect world, the hospitality provider should be able to switch from one software to the other pretty much overnight. Okay, not without waiting 3 to 6 months. Now, from a vendor point of view, that's a complete different story, because now cloud means a lot and means nothing, because you got cloud and then you got migrated to the cloud. And then you got cloud native. And these things are not the same thing at all, okay? Let me give you an example. I have a few clients in Africa, right? Connection is not always the best. So they are super worried to go on a cloud system because they're not sure that the internet bandwidth will be enough to support the system. Now, this is true when you think about a system that has been built for legacy, for physical server, because okay, whatever, we don't need to compress the code, whatever we want to do, we do it because we got servers. When you go to a cloud native system, this has been already thought to create something that is more agile, leaner than a legacy system. So you need to be very careful when and this is why I do my job. Otherwise, I would be totally unemployed because I don't create anything. The only thing I do with hotels is just talking to them and explaining what they should do. But a lot of again, I'm not name dropping, but a lot of the times when they are selling you a cloud system, either you got the server somewhere else, or it's a system that has been on legacy for 20 years, and now you're trying to migrate, and at some point everything breaks. So that's not really innovation, right? So in terms of vendors, look, I'm a Darwinian when it comes to that. At some point, these companies will just die off. Look, in Italy, we got something like 250 PMSs. 250 PMSs just in Italy. Some of them, they have 4 clients. I mean, what do you want to do with those guys? They will just be extinct in a few years. So to me, it's more about, but I understand your problem because you are the vendors. So if you say this, most hotels will tell you, you're telling me this because you want to sell me your RMS, and it's easier to integrate. No. That is where I'm super parties here. Not taking any commission from any of you guys. You need to go to the cloud. So otherwise it's a disaster.
So let's switch to Adam on this kind of the same question, because with OTA Insight, you have a lot of data, like tons of data. So how has that been a challenge for your customers, knowing that you have a cloud native type of technology in place?
Yeah, I mean, we have really robust security protocols in place. I think to Simone's point, like I don't know that the cloud is even a buzzword anymore. I feel like it's gone the way of the CD or the DVD in terms of, those legacy having local servers. So I feel like to dispel any notion of, if it's a security concern, I think that has gone away. I think if you're doing the pros versus cons in terms of the overall cloud benefits, I think it's a night and day side by side comparison. And there's so many tangible benefits. But yeah, we make it, the cloud updates automatically. You can securely log in. You can run your reports at scale. It just makes, and again, this collaboration that we keep talking about, it makes collaborating across the org so much easier versus running on local servers. So yeah, again, those folks that are just sitting on the sidelines, the laggards, so to speak, it's okay to embrace the cloud. It's here. It's not going away, and it is the future. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, James, I think also I'll just add that it's cloud plus cloud native plus API first. I think that those are sort of the key ingredients to facilitate that quick deployment, secure, robust exchange of data to enable the ecosystem to thrive. The data in the ecosystem is the oxygen. That's what's going to keep it alive, and we need to pass that data freely and effectively and quickly from one application to the next. And if you're not cloud native and if you're not an API first company, or at least have an open API, then working with you becomes really, really difficult for all the other vendors that are part of that ecosystem. And I like to say that the scrap heap of failed technology companies in hotel tech is huge, not because those technologies were bad or inappropriate or whatever. It's because they've failed to get the oxygen needed to make their product work or scale. Right. And it's a real shame. I think we're all those walled garden solutions that didn't allow for the free exchange of data are responsible for they're accountable for a huge for the hospitality being behind in digitalization, and we need to change that.
Can I add something to that? Because I think that to a certain extent the hotel provider, even though not willingly, is part of the problem whenever it goes with a legacy system or without an API first system. And that is why we need to make sure that they do understand the problems, because again, I always say tomorrow you wake up and you've got an amazing idea to change travel entirely. It's not going to work because the first thing you need is connecting to PMSs. And that's it's painful experience, right? Like I'm working with a lot of companies just trying to sell rooms as NFTs. That in theory, that's an amazing thing. No way it's going to happen because they don't come from the hospitality world. And I said, okay, this is amazing. It's going to be super easy. And then they get to the industry and they say, okay, what the hell is going on? We got 1,000 different systems and they're all closed and we need to wait 1 year and they ask $20K for any integration. I'm not, by the time I will develop this technology, it will be like VHS versus Laserdiscs. And so that's the main problem, right? So I always say, look, there is a very easy formula, and then I will zip my mouth. When you pick a system, first question, cloud or legacy? If it's cloud, good. Legacy, no. Cloud, native or migrated? If it's migrated, no. Okay, then API, yes or no? API, yes, good. API first, yes. Open API, yes. If you check all the boxes and it's all good, then you move on. Otherwise, just forget about it. Let them die.
Simone, I love this thin, that breakdown. I sense another ebook coming out here shortly.
Look, I just came out of my last fourth one. I'm done with books for a while.
Drop the mic.
I think we're going to have media devices discussion here pretty soon between CDs and VHS and Laserdisc. I'm aging myself right now. So.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a lot about. Sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, assuming that there's still a few folks out there, we're dropping a lot of acronyms, but can we explain for folks that don't know out there? I assume everyone does, but for anyone out there, what an API is, what it stands for, and why it matters. If there's anyone that's in the legacy side that doesn't understand what an API is and how it works.
Great question, Simone. You want to take that?
Well, first of all, I need to tell you that in Italian, APIs means bees. So it's funny because when we write them, it's always a problem because we never know what we're talking. So, look, let's from a non-tech point of view, so everybody can understand that. It's just a way two systems can talk to each other, okay? And in a way that the systems are resilient and self-sufficient. And I always use this example. Let's say, James, where are you from? Remember?
I live in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, so what is the like typical dish in Oregon?
Let's say donuts.
Okay.
Any Oregonian that's here, they're probably gonna laugh that I said that. But
Okay.
let's go for it.
But
Good
look,
morning here. I haven't had breakfast.
That's fine. So let's say you and me, we create a company selling donuts together, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing we need is like we start writing the code, and then Michael comes in, and Michael is in London now. So I'm sorry, you have nothing good to eat. You know, whatever. You come up and you want to add beers. Okay, I will give you that. And we'll need to write another piece of code, and everything will be dependent on the rest. And at some point, you have this monster, and when you want to integrate something, you need to be careful because something else can break. And I always like, the Amazon approach, like the two pizza approach, right? So like if you need more than two pizzas to feed the developers working on an API, that is not working. You need to switch to something else. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's basically just a way for two systems to talk to each other and exchange information and data. And luckily to do that without 2 years of wait and 20K on top.
Got it.
And now I'm hungry.
I know. Maybe I said that because I should have said wine, but I said donuts because it's early in the morning here for me. So,
I'm Italian. You cannot say wine in Oregon.
all right, that's another session we'll have here.
Yeah.
All right, so let's. We talked a lot about kind of behind the scenes things that are not seen as much with from the user perspective, but now let's talk about the user. Kind of what their needs are. Our CEO, Dax Cross, he always likes to say that no one taught us how to use Waze. So why should you have a day-long training for modern software? And I really agree with that. Why do we need to go through these certification processes? Why should not the software be intuitive enough to provide the individual the training? I mean, we all download, apps from the App Store to our phones, and we walk right through the training and we use them both for fun as a game and then also professional if we have kind of software we need to use on a day-to-day basis. So what does that mean to have something that is a user-centric type of software platform? So let's start with Michael on that one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Waze, and I use that analogy all the time. And I would say what's happened, and I sort of touched on this earlier, is that when we built applications, we built the applications to kind of replicate existing processes. So we built, rather than sort of changing and providing technology that encouraged efficiency, we actually just created technology that supported, almost like crutches, holding up existing maybe bad processes or inefficient processes. So that was the first problem. And because those processes were inefficient and not optimal, the technology became, certainly in the front end, became clunky. It became, there were lots of bells and whistles, and they tried to cram as much stuff as they could into them. And the consequence of that was the only people that could drive them were these specialist users who, took years and years to get up to speed. It's almost like, you created this Formula One racing car, and the only person that could drive it was a Formula One racing driver with lots and lots of experience.
Right,
and,
right.
and you became very dependent on those people. And the other consequence of that is it created silos, because the more complex you made the applications, the less other people could get involved and use those applications. So it was kind of a double whammy. You needed specialist, expensive people to drive them, and excluded anyone else from the organization to actually facilitate that collaboration and breaking down of the silos. So by not doing that, by actually developing software that didn't require a complex user interface, that actually solved problems much more through automation, you could actually facilitate a lot more collaboration. A lot more people could use it, and also, but they'd also spend less time in the application, because it was just literally 2 or 3 clicks here and there, and then they could go off and do more strategic stuff. Helping the business grow in the long term rather than focusing on tactical decisions.
No, I agree with that 100%. Especially when you have an application which clicks throughs and allows the user to understand it. I remember when I was a director of revenue, I didn't want my GM in there. And it wasn't so much for that, control over it. I was just like, I just don't want you in there. But that's not the world we live in now. We have to be able to break down those silos so that this way everybody understands the commercial strategy for that particular asset, as well as throughout the entire company. So, Adam, what have you seen with some of your clients with this, especially with the training tools that you have within OTA Insight?
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely have training modules, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is to simplify the complex. The end user experience, is elegant. We really want to make it as intuitive and simple, whether you're a revenue manager, whether you're a marketer, whether you're in sales, to get up and running. We realize that for our customers, time is their most valuable asset. And so, the time to get in the tool, get out of the tool, get on with their day-to-day, that's what we're really trying to deliver, is just this elegant experience that's super simple, which again is simplifying the complex is incredibly hard for our engineers and developers. But that output, whether it's the UI, the UX, the end-to-end experience, we really maniacally focus on that, so that end result is simple, intuitive, and there's not a lot of training and onboarding that's necessary for folks.
Fantastic. Well, we're a little bit over our time here, so I'd like to ask any of our panelists any last parting thoughts before we wrap up. We'll start with Michael.
Well, I suppose given that this webinar was off the back of the white paper that we wrote, my advice and guidance to everyone is download it and read it. And there is a part 2 coming out to it as well, where we'll dig into some of the aspects in a little bit more detail. But I think it's a great launch pad to kind of really evaluate your tech stack and sort of question your existing vendors about whether they're relevant or not for your operation and what you're trying to achieve.
Simone?
Well, I get a message for accommodation providers in general. When a vendor tells you that it's not technically possible, usually it is technically possible. It's just not commercially possible, okay? Or it's not commercially interesting for them. So just like the old Fox Mulder would say, trust no one when it comes to technology.
We froze up there a little bit. And Adam?
Yeah, I'll just quote Bob Dylan. Times are changing. We're not going back to a 2019 pre-pandemic world. Shifts will continue. Market conditions will continue to change. With inflationary pressures, things like that. So I would advise everyone to, that's sitting on the sidelines, really embrace and lean into this technology and leverage it to your advantage. It's not a monster in the room. It's something that you and your teams can really embrace and leverage, and again, focus on what you do best, and that's deliver a high quality guest experience to folks. So it's not an enemy; it's your friend. So lean into it and download the ebook.
Download the
Every marketer, CTA, yeah, download that ebook.
Well, thank you to my panelists for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. And thank you to my colleague, Tess McGoldrick, who couldn't make it today, unfortunately, but we're able to fill in for her. And everyone who joined us today, again, download the ebook and have a happy holidays. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.